I think the main thing is to recognize that the cost of gathering and processing information is quite high, especially when it involves dealing with individuals. So you have to minimize that. And the position in the report is that for very small accounts, you can't go through the whole range of KYC requirements, knowing the business of the customer, what they're going to be doing with the money, what kind of relationship you're going to have with them. Maybe the best you can do is to be reasonably sure of who they are. And maybe have a mechanism so if you have a small account, you don't have someone with 2,000 small accounts which is disguising the pattern of movement through the financial system, things like that. So it really gets back to the question of customer identification and verification, which is a subset of the whole KYC sort of apparatus. And for that, I think the main point that we were making is that if the government doesn't provide a mechanism for this, the banking system will have to develop its own, or the financial system will have to develop its own, which is happening in some countries, unfortunately. And the effect of that is to raise costs. It's very costly for a financial system to develop its own identification system. And so this will discourage financial inclusion. So we're suggesting that it's much easier if there's a strong base system, preferably a system, well, or almost certainly a system which sort of guarantees uniqueness. It has very strong controls against multiple identities. And if you have that kind of system, you can do a lot for financial inclusion. If you don't, it becomes very difficult.
Now, Alan and Njuguna, please.
Actually, you can still, like, all my life in Kenya, I knew I had an identity number. But the biggest problem was that, is it user-friendly? Is it accessible to, for example, the financial services providers? If you come with your ID, how sure am I, as a service provider, that this is the person who is there? Yeah. So, like 3 years ago, I started working very hard and even pushing very hard the Ministry of Immigration to try and create this national database so that you can access it even from a banking counter. And that is what is really happening. So you can have the identification system, but if it's not accessible, then it becomes quite a problem. But maybe we are advantaged because of the fiber optic cable, internet is very available. But we need to emphasize that this is not only the identification system that is required, easy accessibility so that you can confirm this is the person. I can give an example that checks was, the most fraudulent was actually issuing a check. Somebody will come up with a fake check and you don't know whether this person is the one indicated in the checkbook, in the check leaf. And all of a sudden it can manage to cash the check and things stop there. But if somebody comes in the check, the first thing is to ask, can I have your identity card? Then you can just punch in the number and you get the number. Everything works very well. So essentially, that is a system we are trying to push to the next level of saying accessibility at every point of service.
If I can just comment there, I think Kenya really is a very interesting case because Kenya does have a very strong identity system. It's a card-based system. And the next challenge will be to take it to the next level where we're actually identifying people, not cards. And so I know there's a discussion going on in Kenya about this, but in principle, it ought to be possible for a bank to be able to say, even if a person walks in without a card and just says, who am I? A bank ought to be able to do that like that. And I mean, technically, that is now possible. So I think this is where we have to look for the future if we want comprehensive systems. Not everybody likes that idea, by the way. But there is some discomfort in some quarters about that. But logically, if we're following this route, this is sort of where it's pushing you.